I would like to turn our attention to our panelists here. Bernie Stoltz is the co-founder and CEO of Fortune Management, one of the world's largest coaching organizations for physicians. Bernie is a seasoned motivator and public speaker and an author with over 25 years of business leadership experience in the healthcare community. Howard Ong is a dentist and dental surgeon and is the co-owner of. I'm sorry, Howard. I asked you this.
Oaxaca.
And Ong, an extremely successful dental practice in Seal Beach, California, where he now focuses his efforts on implants, surgery, and customer care, and recently inspired the expansion of his practice, adding a specialty suite dedicated to surgical treatments. And we have Wayne Staub. A lot of you know Wayne. He's a recognized expert in hearing healthcare field. He had served for years as the director of the American Auditory Society, AAS, and has worked in executive positions at several hearing aid companies. Now he serves as a consultant and president of Dr. Wayne J. Staub and Associates. And I also have to ask everybody to recognize Wayne and congratulate him on the Samuel F. Liebarger Career Achievement Award from AAA this year. We have Dr. Shagata Bhattacharya, is the manager of the Southern New England ENT in New Haven, Connecticut. Like Dr. Staub, he serves as an editorial advisory member for the Hearing Review and is greatly relied upon and valued by us and in the Starkey Hearing Technologies organization for his knowledge of worldwide hearing, the worldwide hearing industry, practice management, and dispensing here in the U.S. So I'm going to shoot some questions at the panel, and then what I would like, if any of the panelists have additional comments after the panelist answers, I would like to, and audience participation is encouraged as well. So I'm going to start with Bernie. You know, in the Path to Purchase study that Randy did, one of the key findings was that 50% of the patients went online to research treatment, products, costs, and doctors. They sought information on medical advice websites and provider websites, and websites that provided reviews of physicians, which are cropping up all over the place, right? Bernie, can you share some of the best practices when it comes to using the internet and attracting new patients, and what providers' websites should look like and include as a best practice? In other words, why is it so important for hearing healthcare professionals to proactively manage their online reputations?
Absolutely. How's everybody doing today? Good? Awesome. Nice to be here with you. Yeah, I think, first of all, before I even answer that question, which I will, I really would encourage you to really take a look at that Path to Purchase study. That was one that I think we are all very proud of, whether it's at CareCredit or us as industry experts. I know I was very, very involved in that. And the advice I can give you this afternoon is really based on not just our work at Fortune Management, we've got 4 different divisions: dentistry, optometry, veterinary medicine, as well as plastic surgery, and we have done audiology as well. And one of the things that is so important about that Path to Purchase, and really, if I was going to give any of you advice on running your businesses and running your practices, would be to really, really pay attention to what the consumer really wants. You said something very important. You said that the consumer is driving the bus. That is not just in your profession, guys. That's in every profession. What we know the consumer wants today is they want 3 things. They want better, they want faster, and they want more affordable. Make no mistake on that. And one of the things that we spend a lot of our time in practice management doing is making sure that we teach our doctors and our practices how to run their businesses through the eyes, or as you said, the lens of the consumer. I think one of the craziest things you can do in business today, in any business today, is to continue to run or market your business through your own lenses. So it's really important. And when I say what they want is more affordable, I did not use the word cheap, Because actually, if you look at those industry statistics that you just gave, actually they want better. If you look at the trend there, it's moving away from the low-cost device, which means that really it's about how to give the best possible product to them at a more affordable process. But let me answer the question as far as internet presence. If I was going to give you, I think, 4 things that we teach every one of our practices in the country to master, I would give you these 4. Number 1, as far as your website, you need to see your website today as the cornerstone to your business. It's the window to the world. And life is very unfair if you are a business today and do not have a really, really good website. The fact of the matter is you can be the greatest in your profession, but if your website is not search engine optimized, if it's not mobile optimized, if it doesn't have the right hot buttons, if it doesn't scroll properly, if it doesn't navigate properly, if you don't have hot buttons for them to immediately dial your phone or make an appointment or ask frequently asked questions, then in the consumer's mind, you're a lousy business. Now, I know that's not true and it's not fair, but it's how they make decisions. And so what I would recommend as far as your website is, first of all, today we want our websites to be as portable and flexible as your Facebook page, which I'll get to that in a moment because that's part of it. But in other words, we don't feel that we want our offices to have to call a webmaster or call a hosting company anymore to make changes. The content needs to be very relevant. It has to be very new and fresh. And we need people inside the office, whether it be the millennial who knows how to be the Facebook queen of the office or whatever it's going to be, but somebody needs to own it from inside those 4 walls. The other thing I would say is video, video, video. You need video testimonials inside that website. We know that Google is craving for more and more content, and video is one of the best things to help you really raise your search engine optimization. So website, you got to master. I would say that leads me into my second thing, which ties to both Facebook as well as the internet. And that is, I would make it a point this year that you and your team are going to develop a library of 50 video testimonials. And the way we're teaching our teams to do that today is everybody's a one-take wonder. Everyone is a 30 to 45-second iPhone video testimonial. We want them natural. We want them credible. And we want them to tell you about how you've changed their life. And what I would want is I would want those being rotated up and down off your website on a weekly basis. I'd want 2 or 3 new ones on there every week. I'd want them rotated. The other thing I would want is I would want our healthcare professionals, our team, to also be doing videos that are accessible to that website. If you're a doctor, then you need to be telling your powerful why on your website of why you decided to do what you do. It's very, very important. So there's a lot to the website. And again, mobile optimized. We know that 60 to 70% of all search engines or how you're looked for is going to be on a mobile device. So, and that does not mean a typical, just an HTML website that's jammed into an iPhone screen. That's not what that means. It means it's a whole different look to it. Everything's scrollable with one thumb. Second thing is the Facebook page. We know that people today spend more hours a month on Facebook than they do on network television. And there's a way to use that proactively in your marketing. You must master Facebook. If I had more time, we do complete programs on that stuff, but you need to make sure you master Facebook. Third thing, you master online reviews, starting with Yelp and Google reviews. And nowadays, you can tie those video testimonials that I talked about to all 3 of those social medias. You can obviously put them on your website. Obviously, you can tie them to Facebook. And now with Facebook, you can increase your market capabilities through Boost and other new options that they have there. Best thing you could do would be to have one of your videos go viral. We had a dental practice in New Jersey a couple months ago. One of their video testimonies went viral, 43,000 unique views. That's more than what they would have got if they bought a commercial on network TV. So you need to use that. And then, like I said, online reviews, massively important. 70% of the consumers want to see online reviews, and you can tag actually video testimonials to the online reviews. So I think having a social media and online presence, it's not a should, it's a must. If you're not doing that, then I think you're missing out on probably 70% of the market. It says 50% in their surveys. I would tend to think it's even higher than that. So I think taking a look at those things. And the other thing I would just finally say about social media is don't confuse yourself with a lot of other things that are making noise out there that are really not relevant to you. I'll give you the most important one that I think you don't need to pay attention to is Twitter. Unless you are following Taylor Swift or going to overthrow a third world country, you probably don't need Twitter. It's not going to do a lot for your practice. But make no mistake, Facebook is the 500-pound gorilla of social media, and Yelp and online reviews, and then you've got to have a website as your storefront to the world. It's the ultimate leveling of the playing field.
Great advice. Thanks, Bernie. Dr. Ong, the Path to Purchase study found a large majority of patients sought information in the provider's office. Can you share you've got a tremendously successful dental and dental surgery office. Can you share with us some of the practices that you use on delivering an exceptional patient experience? And why is the customer experience so important? How does the experience impact the patient's desire and ability to accept recommended care? And what kind of tips and techniques do you use in your everyday practice to create that wow effect for patients?
It's a lot of information, huh? First, thanks for letting me, as a dentist, dip into the audiology world. Although I'm not an audiologist, one thing we have in common is we're practitioners and we're entrepreneurs, we're business people. I look at things, I step back in our practice, and both as a practitioner and a business person, is that, first, the report that Randy gave, you have a captive audience. 80% plus people make their decisions in office, so they really trust you. And that's how we feel in our practice, too. So a lot of what we encourage in our practice and our team is leadership. And that's leading your patient to the best healthcare outcomes, whether it's price, whether it's quality, whether it's the premium product. You don't have to be a president of a company. You don't have to be CEO of a Fortune 500 or have the charisma of a celebrity. In fact, some of the best leaders are on your team. You just have to get out of the way. So the way we do, and how I would recommend is, leadership, they're choosing you, your practice, so you have to make them fans of you because you want the permission to treat. So you have to allow them and lead them to see that your practice is their audiology home. Second thing is you have to lead them to show their expectations. If you don't have their expectations, you don't know how to treat them or why they're there. Another thing is lead them to discover their value system. It could be time, it could be money, it could be comfort, it could be cosmetic. They don't want to see your product. Lead them to uncover their fears or anxieties about treatment. Also lead them to being able to lead them so that you can give value to your product and services. And that's a process. And if you can build those things, that gives your patients permission to treat, and that's where it starts. One of the, I think, another responsibility you have is that we also have to lead them to the ability to pay for treatment. Because if we're recommending treatment, ultimately, and they don't get the care that we're recommending, then it really doesn't benefit anybody. So really encourage that, because that's very helpful. You know, I was on the plane coming over here, and my seat passenger, she was in her maybe mid-50s, and we're just having small talk, but eventually it led to, you know, what we did as a living. And I said, I'm a dentist, and the first thing she said was, I love my dentist. I've been going to him for 15 years. You know, and that was phenomenal, because it told me a lot. One, our industry has done a great service. Competition, whether you like it or not, has really upped our game. You have to be good. The next level is exceptional. So 15 years, that tells me that this patient has had a great experience. Our industry has, that doctor has provided her exceptional care or an experience, or a loyalty brand. You know, and I think when you do all that process of leadership and guiding patients to good healthcare outcomes, you stay patient-centered, because you're doing something what's in the best interest of the patient, whether you're leading them to the premium product or not so premium. You know, they understand that you're in it for themselves. Another vital best practice for patient experience is your team. Your team is vital. I rarely go to a continuing education course without my team. It sounds kind of funny, but they come alongside me, because it's important that they're accountable for the learning as well as I am. And it makes us accountable to the patient to deliver that learning as well. And it really keeps everybody on the same page, and they understand the answers and the why they're there. Probably the wow factor, if you're asking for a wow factor, it's that experience. It's not a magic formula. I don't think it's a product you provide. I think it's the experience and that that method and the process a patient goes through as they enter your practice as a new patient and cycle through as a recall patient. One of our dental mentors named Omar Reed, I think he's from Arizona, he said, I quote, "Financial stability precedes technical excellence." So, you know, it's important that as entrepreneurs we want to build our practice to be financially stable. We never want to practice from our pocketbook. And I think if patients feel that, I think they'll sense that your motives may be different. Now, how does that translate the experience to accepting care? I think you get case acceptance by learning that experience is a mere form of communication. The acceptance of care means that your experience has resonated with them. You've done your job. If they don't accept care, it's a matter of your communication style. Something went wrong for that patient, maybe. You didn't connect. You just have but the beauty of our as healthcare providers is we get another chance. In another hour, we get another chance to improve it. And if you get case acceptance, then and eventually with more case acceptances, you'll figure out what communication style works best. And the experience, the method of experience will resonate with the patient, because they'll understand you're there to serve them. Once you've come from a point of service, I think it's really powerful. And of course, the experience also helps the patient get the care that you're recommending. And I think that's what we all want to do is get the patient to the best healthcare outcomes.
Thank you. Dr. Staub, you've played an important part in the development of technology and education of audiologists and hearing instrument specialists since, I don't mean to date you, Wayne, but since the 1970s. And if you look back on all your teachings in your career, it would appear that you've kind of strived to have a marriage between technology and the services provided by practitioners, in many cases working on projects that were a bit iconoclastic and were kind of departures of the current model. What are your thoughts about best practices today, and what would you change if you could about the patient journey and how they receive hearing care?
Well, first of all, thank you everybody for having me here. And I just have to make a comment. The front row over here seems to be one of these team efforts that, is that correct? That I just heard Dr. Ong talking about? I think you brought all of your people with you? Okay, nice, thank you. When it comes to looking at best practice and technology, I'm somewhat of a contrarian, I guess. And that a lot of people think that technology and best practice are necessarily hand in hand with each other. And I guess I kind of depart from that somewhat, because best practice really is kind of a benchmark. And it's a benchmark really of standard ways of doing things. And while we have a lot of standard ways of doing things in audiology, a lot of them relate not so much to the patient care process, but more to the technological aspects of measurement. And while that's okay, as we've heard people talking here, we have to remember that in a lot of ways, the patient care is really the same thing as marketing, as opposed to perhaps sales. Sales, for example, is looking after your needs. Marketing is basically looking after the consumer needs. And what we have here, as I look at technology and best practice, I see a kind of a dilemma here. For example, if we look at the technology and development of products, there are really three factors that are involved with this, and they've always been involved, and I think they still continue to be involved. And one of them is cosmetics. We've always designed products for cosmetics in this industry, and we still do that. Make no mistake about it. Secondly, we look at technology and miniaturization, and you might think, well, these two necessarily go hand in hand, whereas probably the technology leads the miniaturization because it's kind of a dilemma here, because you get a smaller product and it leads to a more cosmetic product, okay? So we have that, and of course the last thing really relates to packaging. That's the last factor. We design and manufacture hearing aids to make instructions simple. We want them as straightforward as possible. So we have the manufacturing, the technology end, which is one thing. You know, we try to get the best sound and that we can, mimic human hearing as best we can. And we do that. But interestingly, in these development factors that I've talked about, none of these actually drive hearing aid development, none of them actually relate to best practice. So it's kind of interesting. Remember, best practice really kind of relates to a level of agreement among individuals in terms of what's the best procedure to go ahead. And so this kind of is the dilemma. Let me give you some examples of some of the conflict that I'm talking about here, where best practice and technology do not go hand in hand. I'm going to go back to the XP peritympanic instrument in 1991. This was a product, a new technology, new ear impression techniques, taking everything down to the eardrum, actually making an imprint of the tympanic membrane as part of the process. It was an entirely different procedure for the marketing and selling of a particular product. Now, if we looked at this thing, was there a best practice for this? The answer was no. Was it viewed as an accepted practice? The answer is no. Most audiologists argued against the practice. They said it was dangerous. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, many of those arguments were based on lack of knowledge or experience by the professional, because they just didn't know. They'd never been down there. But what that did, believe it or not, even though we didn't have a best practice, what did it lead to? It led to the development of CIC hearing aids. It led to the development of IIC hearing aids. So here we have a technology that developed without any best practice at all, which was supposedly fraught with danger, and still provided a product through its technology that helped to create and build the hearing aid industry. So I think we have to be a little careful. We can go further than that. We can look at some that came about and failed, but are probably likely to come back again. Let's take the Songbird disposable hearing aid. Here's an instrument, for example, that was targeted as a cost-effective product, actually to expand the market. Now, a lot of people say, well, it didn't work because it wasn't any good. Well, the truth is that the product itself was very good. Brian Moore in England did an in-depth study of the product, comparing it to the premium priced digital hearing aids of the day, and found that it was better or equal in every aspect to the most expensive digital hearing aids. Now, the thing is, this was a throwaway product. It lasted originally 30 days, then 60 days. But it had some different things associated with it. For example, first of all, it was disposable, meaning that if a person followed this procedure, got rid of it, they got a brand new hearing aid. There were no returns for credit, basically. There were no repairs to be made. So in other words, we had a possibility for a disruptive technology that did not come about. It didn't come about for two different reasons. One, the electronics, basically, and the components that we had at the time were not small enough to really be able to fit into the canal as well as we would have liked. But the real big problem with it is that it was not accepted by the audiological community because they had to sacrifice $10 profit on a unit in 2 months versus $2,000 on a product that they could put in their pocket. So, well, you know, in my opinion, will something like this come about again? I think absolutely. It's inevitable. We can look at every profession that's around right now, I think, and at other products, and we can see that there are tremendous advantages to disposability. I mean, it's a future, and that's where things are. Now, let's go even further. Let's take something that's very common, ear impressions. Now, is this best practice? Everybody does it a certain way, but you know, we don't have any evidence to show, no research studies to show that the technique we use really has any clinical advantage over something else. So here we have another thing. We can go further than that. Let's take manufacturers' programming of their hearing aids right now. It's generally accepted, but all manufacturers basically do this somewhat differently. They have different proprietary fitting formula. They use feedback and noise reduction, adaptive directionality different. So even though these are all different, somehow they're accepted as best practice. So I have a little difficulty with that. Tinnitus maskers, there's no best practice for them, but they're accepted and used. Cochlear implants, when we first started, when Bill House presented the first cochlear implants and the presentations with it, and I was in the audience listening, he was booed out of the center. People would not listen to him. Cochlear implants now are very accepted. So technology, I'm not sure technology and best practice go hand in hand. Sometimes we think it should be that way, but if we don't have the technology without it being a best practice, we still might all be fitting ear trumpets rather than what we're fitting today. So I look at it that way and I say, yeah, there are some different things, you know, that have occurred, you know. And so as we look at this, remember, technology does not always drive the market. This is what we've been hearing from individuals here. And if we depend on technology to drive the market, we have some difficulties. Let me give you an example. Today, many of us have premium priced hearing aids that have, I don't know how many combinations, but if we ran all of the parameters together, you know, we might have a few million combinations that we could run. Does that sound reasonable? Not only do some of us not know where to start, but certainly we never know where to end, do we? one of the things that we have with the technology today, and I'm not sure how it fits into best practice, is that we may, in many ways, for many of the patients that we serve, be over-engineering the hearing instruments. And we make hearing instruments with 1 dB increments that you can change in terms of gain, whatever it might be. But you know, a patient in real life will never hear a 1 dB change. In fact, if you get into real life, it takes about a 5 dB increment change for someone to notice that there's a gain change. We have adaptive directionals that we're not able to measure the performance of. You know, I'm a person that believes that the old directionals that we had years ago are probably better than the adaptive directionals we have today, because with the adaptive directionals we have today, we have absolutely no idea what's happening. That's a personal bias on mine based on making lots and lots of measurements of adaptive directionality. And it goes with a lot of the things. Years ago, J. Donald Harris, a pioneer in hearing research, made an interesting comment. He said, you know, if you have a complex system, and let's say speech discrimination, and you look at one aspect of it, you can find if there's a significance to it or not. He said, but when you put them all together, it might not make any difference at all. And I think that's what happens here. We make measurements of a lot of the things that we are using, and we look at certain aspects in isolation. And so I think we can find significant differences in isolation, but when we combine them with the other features that are going on, we're not really sure. What happens when we combine 4 or 5 different parameters together? How do they really interact with each other? Because we know they do not interact independently of each other in whatever we're doing. So the thing is, you know, we can have best practices, and there are different ways to get around it and all of this type of thing. And there are some things that I would probably change when I get in, if I look at this. I would reevaluate the role of technology, probably in terms of trying to understand patient satisfaction. It's important to look at what the patient result is. The patient is the person who, as we've heard, really makes the decision, and that's really true. I always have an example I use. I said, you know, if I want to buy a new car and I go out and I know the car I want, and I want a certain color and I want a certain interior to it, and they don't have it. And they say, well, when can I have it? And they say, well, you can get it in 6 months. Well, I want the car now. I've made the decision, right? That's what we do. Once we come in to buy the hearing aid, you've made the decision already. You're going to buy. So I buy a car, but now it's not the right color and doesn't have the interior that I like. Will I ever be satisfied with that car? No. Everything that comes up, I will complain about because it's not the color and it's not the car, the interior that I wanted. I mentioned we do a little over-engineering, you know, of some of our products, but perhaps we also in technology don't engineer always for the population that we should be serving. Or let me put it this way, probably the population we are not serving, because that is by far the largest population. And so, you know, one of the things that bothered me for years and years about technology is that, let's say 65% of the hearing aids are sold to people 65 years in age and older. That's a nice, rough way to look at it. But do we really design a hearing aid for the elderly? The closest I ever came was one Panasonic did a few years ago, that little square thing, that J thing or whatever they had. I don't know if any of you even remember that. But we don't. We build a hearing aid for a population that is looking for the most and the latest in technology. And that's not what drives the industry. Many of us remember years ago when the industry took its first really great movement in terms of hearing aid sales. And that was the time of President Reagan. He wore a hearing aid. Now, was it because it was the best hearing aid in the world? And the answer is no. It may have been. I don't mean to say anything about it. But the point is, it wasn't purchased because of that. People bought the hearing aid because he had bought it, and to them, he, as a conservative, having purchased and used that hearing aid was as good as 1 million other people already having purchased it. So when we look at products that are out there and we look at a lot of the new technology, remember, a lot of the people we're dealing with are a little bit more aged. They don't have the dexterity, they don't have the knowledge, they're not as interested in being a guinea pig for all new technology. Remember, we have to look at utility when we look at a product. Utility is the big thing, not the technology. What is important for them to utilize? I have a saying I used over the years, and some of you may have heard it already, but when it comes to hearing aids, a hearing aid is never purchased based on the degree of hearing loss that a person has. A hearing aid is only purchased based on the degree of hurt. If the hurt isn't great enough psychologically, socially, economically, or emotionally, there is no hearing loss. So the thing that we have to look at and the thing we have to be aware of is not so much perhaps the technology, but we really have to be aware of what the consumer's idea of hurt is. And this gets back to the consumer need. We have to look at the consumer need more than perhaps the technology need. As a technologist, I want the technology, but let's not think that best practice and technology, or technology has to fit all of best practice for it to be something successful and something to be useful down the line.
Exactly. Yep. Thanks, Wayne. Shagata, as an audiologist, you know how important pricing and value and payment solutions are to patients, especially those who are on a fixed income. As the survey found, many patients had delayed care. They saved to make purchases or sacrificed other items in order to get hearing health care. Can you share with us your best practices when it comes to pricing, the financial conversation, and how to communicate value to patients so that they understand price and what payment solutions that you offer and when to offer them?
Oh, that's a lot. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. It's almost time for some coffee. And I just, before I start, I wanted to thank Dr. Ong. If every practice manager was like you, and all practice would be thriving, because you are as strong as your weakest link, period. And if you're, and I believe it, and it starts from your patient care provider, your receptionist, whatever you call, who picks up the phone and gives the first impression of your practice, and from them to your entire team. If they are not, if you cannot give them the feeling that they are the part of a greater good, the practice will never be. So, thank you. But on another note, I've been doing this for a long time, but the dentists are the worst patients we get. I mean, those years and years of drill sound and the high frequency loss, and I mean, Wayne, you're very true that there is no correlation between practice and technology, and that is why if you start counseling, hearing aid counseling before they buy, throwing technology jargon, you lose the war. Because the other day we were repricing our price list, and I wanted to see what was going around my area. And as you mentioned, it's not apples to apples when it comes to Costco. So, and if you use words like channels, the product line I deal with, the highest you can offer is 24 channel, and you go to the website of Costco, they are offering 44 channel. I mean, like, okay, so it's, you will lose the war on that, you gave 3 steps, but I think I'll go with before the price. I think I will go with the value first. So it's like value and price, and then how you buy it. And but Wayne, we are still even though there is a lot out in the net and people have a lot of resource, but till date, I think you are the brand. I mean, when a person comes and the person who is across the table is basically the brand. I mean, it's in my practice, and I have 8 offices, maybe I have a very different demographic. It's the Gold Coast line of Connecticut. I'm lucky I have that area. I have 10 ENTs, those who support us and let us do anything we want, basically. I mean, they don't micromanage, but it is basically the ultimate sale is built on the trust that you have. And a lot of things help. How you deal with the patient helps. Humor helps. I mean, you may have a HAE at 4:30. I mean, I start at 8 o'clock. I'm drained, but you have to realize. I studied in India, so my education was free until I did my AUD in US, and it was expensive. But if I wanted, I could have studied plastic surgery for free too. And I have friends who are plastic surgeon, and they don't have to sell something which people don't like. I mean, people go with cash. I mean, so. But here we have a very it's a very uphill battle, because first of all, a person, you have to think the psychology which plays behind, okay, I am going today and I'm officially getting old. I am buying something which nobody wants, and then they are expensive. So, I mean, it's just like almost a vicious circle. And you as a professional, you have to, and truthfully, there is no best practice. Everybody, it's pretty much, and I have been to many clinics, many successful clinics. Everybody has, every successful clinic have their own way of doing things. But if you say, there are some standards I can see, which is the process part. All good practices have very good process. They have an efficient patient care coordinator there. How they manage their website, how they manage their back office, how they recall their patient. They are very similar. But if you see how a professional deals with a patient, it's very individual. It is very individual. So what we do is we use CareCredit a lot, and there are a lot of tools that you can use. One is you can download an Excel spreadsheet of those who have already financed through you, and see how much available credit they have. And they are very hot targeted. Those are targeted marketing, and it works. If you can do that. And ma'am, you asked me a question about why. About offering you had a question about offering. In Connecticut, if you call it a best practice, you have to offer the option if it is available. I mean, if you have it, you have to offer it. So, my question is, what I do is, after everything, see that the advantage we have now is, 80% of the doctors of audiology don't deal with multiple brands anymore. They are. It's come to two providers, and that is because we feel that we can take care of a patient with 1 or 2 brands, and a lot of times it's, it is what is the kind of relationship you have, if you think that you can do more with the patient with a specific product, or if you trust the product. So it is not like before when you had at least four different 3-4 brands. So that have made life easier. And once that is done, and again, they really don't know what is brand. So you basically have to guide them to make the decision. And once the decision is made, you offer them everything. You said, you tell them that, yes, I know they are expensive, but we have all option of payment. We take cash, credit card, and if your credit is good, we have 12 to 18 months no interest payment. Now, two things happen, and I'm going to advocate for us. We have CareCredit here. If you are using CareCredit, also be responsible enough to explain the patient, because the patient needs to know what does deferred interest mean. It is very important. You need to, at times I have a piece of paper and I break it out. I tell, okay, you have 12 months and this is roughly what you will have to pay, because you don't want a patient to come back missing a payment so it is very important that how to counsel the patient about when you are giving a credit option. And secondly, what we have seen is after the approval has been done, at times, a good 30% of the patient, once, they come in thinking, okay, we will buy a hearing aid. And, you are talking about various levels. And if they get a approval, which is a little higher, they may go an extra step and buy a technology level higher than what they have come. It's pretty much like when if you gave the car analogy, it's going to a dealership, and if it really if they are financing, and if it really makes a difference of $20 to me in my monthly payment, I will go for maybe rear camera option, all that. So that is these are the things we follow. But what I feel is at the end of the day, you are the brand, and there is no and you give the value. Why you try to explain to them why hearing aid is expensive, and I'm very open and honest with them. I said, because my practice, I don't unbundle, so I tell them that if the hearing aids are alive and you are alive, every time you come in, I have to service you, period. And I cannot, just because your warranty is over, I won't treat you a different way. If you may come. So these are costs which are already built up, and if you explain it to the patient, they get it, and then you give them available options. And I think CareCredit is great. You had a question about their approval process. Mm-hmm. We use their online, and it is real fast. You just need 4 or 5 information, and then you print out the signature pages, get it signed, and once they have signed the signature pages, you go and you put the form reference code, and they will. It's 30 seconds, and once the approval is done and the number comes up, you can use that very number, that very date, and charge the patient. At times, the patient gets their physical card later than they have already made the purchase. So that's pretty much.
Good. Thank you. I'm going to open it up to any questions or. Any questions in the audience? I've got some. Yes.
Bernie, you talked a little bit about online reputation management, and I think that whether it's something that happened in reality or it's an unhappy patient, because you can't do them every single time. Somebody's going to get a negative review online that said this is a worse doctor rather than to never go see him. How should a physician or a team, how should they respond to that? Should they come back and say, gosh, it wasn't what you're saying didn't happen? How do they respond to a negative review?
I think there's a couple ways to do it. First of all, I think it comes down to a belief system. If somebody has had a bad experience with the practice, then in reality what they're doing is they're crying for help. You know, if you look back at human communication, every response from another human being is either a loving response or a cry for help. So clearly we've got to cry for help. It's just we need to understand that we live in a world of digital communication today where people can go online and they can put things out there that are undeletable and irrefutable sometimes. And so you have to have a total process to do that. What we would recommend to you, first and foremost, you should have some sort of a reputation monitor service or a dashboard on your computers in your practice so that the minute that a negative review surfaces anywhere across the channels in any social media, the practice is alerted. Now, once that's alerted, what we would recommend is we would recommend that before sundown, if possible, that practitioner themselves or that business owner calls that patient personally if they have the ability to do that. And if you are going to do that, it's not to call to request to take the bad review down. It's really to call to apologize and really say, I understand you had a bad experience. That is certainly not our intent. There's no excuse. And what can we do to make it right? So I think that's the first line of defense. A lot of times they're not going to take a call or you're not going to know who it is. They're anonymous. Then what we would recommend is that you would make that same type of quality response online. If any of you have ever seen TripAdvisor or some of the other review sites, you'll see that very frequently. Someone's had a bad hotel stay and the hotel manager will go on and they will say, hey, that's really not what we stand for. We apologize. Please contact us. The next room night's on us or something like that. So I think you can publicly apologize as well. Remember too, saying you're sorry does not admit that you've done anything wrong. I think people get caught up in that. All we're doing is saying, look, we're sorry that it had an impact on you. Please get a hold of us. We'd be happy to help it. I've even seen practices be even a little bit more advanced, and what they'll do is they'll have other satisfied customers or patients on the patient's behalf respond online. I saw one in a dental practice a couple months ago where someone had put a really undeserved bad review out there, and there was another what we call Yelper who they knew that they had in their patient base, and they actually went online and said, you must be smoking crack. This is the greatest doctor and the greatest practice in our town. We've been using this dentist for 25 years. So you can have other people come to your defense as well. I want to make a couple other comments, though, back to this conversation about best practices and also some of the things you gentlemen have said. I think it comes back to the fact, if you were going to write one note in your notes this afternoon, I would say this: definition of success. Find out what other people want, how they want it, and then fill the need quickly and elegantly. It's what I said at the beginning of this. If you want to be the greatest business in the world, you understand that your vision is about you're in business to serve others. And so, yes, it's not about best technology. It's not about best practices. It's about the best result and the best opinion and the best perception by the people who are walking out your doors. That is the end of and by the way, I mean, I don't think it's about price. It is about affordability. I mean, if you take a look, just model all the other consumer-driven businesses. People do not buy the sticker price of a car, they buy the monthly payment. People don't buy a room full of furniture, they buy the monthly payment. We know our surveys, and I don't think they said this in the Path to Purchase study, but let me add a few things to it. Do you know that half of America who carries credit cards does not have $500 open to buy? So when we say that you should offer affordable payment plans at anything over $200, there's a reason for it. It's because people, and again, pay attention to the Path to Purchase findings that in audiology, they're taking over 90 days to make a decision. So what we should be about is shortening the sales cycle. So again, the way you do that, and again, I looked at the surveys on your profession, and the reality of it is, even though we know people buy the monthly payment, I mean, dentistry figured this out in orthodontics 30 years ago. They knew that the magic number was $199 a month. If Mrs. McGillicuddy's little boy Johnny needs ortho, then the magic number was $199 a month. So again, I think as the doctor said here, if you're making it affordable, they'll buy the very best. Because when you're, and I think also the other belief system, I think there's got to be a belief system that what you do really matters and is a worthwhile investment. You need to believe that, your whole team needs to believe that, and the whole team needs to be considered on the marketing team. So I think a lot of it starts with a belief system. I love everything that's been set up here, but what it will take is a shift in the vision at the top of any organization in this room. What that means is you flip your vision inside out. What I mean by that is we don't have patients, we have friends, and we don't have employees, we have partners. People who run businesses that way are the most successful companies out there today. And fall in love with your customer. That's what it takes.
Being patient-centered.
It's got to be.
Any other comments?
Questions?
I was just going to make a comment. You know, the biggest issue that we still face is the non-served market. And most of what we've done has really never attached that particular problem, and it still is the problem that we have today. And when we look at a lot of other industries, I'm just talking in general now, many of them have overcome that by having some kind of disruptive technologies. This industry has never really had what I would call disruptive technologies. We've followed many other industries in what they have. Digital hearing aid, for example. Even when we designed our first wearable digital hearing aid in 1983, it wasn't that digital wasn't around already. Digital had been around for many years. When the RIC instrument came about, it was not really disruptive. It was disruptive, but it was really innovative technology, taking technology that was already evident and present, but rearranging it in a way. So we really haven't had disruptive technology. And of course, the thing that keeps coming up, and I'm just going to throw it out here, is that people say, well, what about all this hearable stuff and everything else? And what about PSAPs? Well, will these be disruptive technologies? I can't tell you that. All I know, though, that is the industry itself. And what we do probably will never get much further ahead and make any further gains in market penetration until something disruptive really starts to happen. And I think as a profession, as an industry, we are hesitant to do that. I can understand the reasons, don't get me wrong, but I think we're hesitant to do that.
And maybe not even looking so much as just hearing aids all the time, but other products. Dr. Ong, you've expanded your practice with different kinds of treatments and your surgical suite and everything like that. I mean, obviously you've invested in different types of things in your care. Can you address that?
Sure. You know, I definitely would agree with Bernie. You know, a culture of success, a culture of leadership is what, you know, I think all of us are shooting for. Some of the, you know, if you're looking for, there's no magic formula. It's experience. It's a process. The process will gain the trust. One of the things that we as practitioners, the privilege of practicing is that we're able to touch people and either prescribe drugs or prescribe products. That's both to us, that's very common, natural thing. For patients, it's not. It's psychological. It's emotional. And when you're dealing with money, becomes for exchange of services, it becomes a little bit more emotional. I think the best practice that we've come across is when you go through that process of gaining that trust, that leadership, and you take the money away via CareCredit, then you're dealing one-on-one and discussing a pure exchange of services, and I think that's a big source of success. I heard continuing care visits, is it once a year? I think one of our, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's average is like two visits.
Okay. One of the biggest success in dentistry was in the 60s when they made a commercial campaign about visiting your dentist 2 times a year. There's really no scientific basis why you should see your dentist 2 times a year, but it was a fantastic campaign. Some need 1 visit a year, some need 4, some need 6, but I think maybe your component organization might need to come up with something like that to help you. In our market, a recent one was change your mattress every 8 years. Well, guess what? I would change our mattress because it was 10 years plus. So those things stick. From having mammograms to having your men over 50 seeing. So those things stick. Definitely, educate your team. That's the most vital tip I can give you, because the one system and systems are another phenomenal thing to develop in your practice. One of the best systems that radiates in our practice is we call the handoff. And the handoff is that it's like a baton in a relay race. When you're handing the baton to someone, there's an expectation that the information, that baton is full of information and the correct information to the receiver of that baton, that they're going to get the same information, this consistent message that you've practiced with your team, and that hand-holding, that repetitious system is a way that process, again, that builds value to the patient. So the cost of goods becomes not as a primary focus, that you're there to serve the patient, then they're at the right place. I think that level of service, when they feel that level of service, that trust begins to foster, and they become fans for life. And another good system is tracking. Our staff tracks me by the year, by the month, by the hour. So it was tough to negotiate to come out here today, because I'm going to have to make it up somehow. But trackers, it's a metric, and you get numbers, whether it's dollars per hour or something other metric, but it's ultimately a form of communication. Case acceptance. If you have a 60% case acceptance, then your shtick is wrong. You got to change your shtick. You got to change the team dynamics. Who's not on the same page? When you track case acceptance at the 80-90% level, then you got some momentum. You've got some elements there that are working, and then just perfect it with your team. Take them to education, learn from one another. That's a tractor we really, really rely on. And when we understand what we're tracking, then we can effectively understand that we're communicating well, our message is getting across, and the ultimate success is they are getting the best healthcare decisions.
Thank you. I think we're going to wrap it up here. I would very much like to thank the participants and the panelists for their excellent insights and participation in our symposium. I know this can be a busy time of the year, and I appreciate your willingness to share your expertise. I'd also like to thank CareCredit for partnering with the Hearing Review to hold the symposium. And finally, I'd like to thank all of you for being here and contributing to the great conversation we had. And also check out the CareCredit community site at business.hearingreview.com. I also want to thank William Sound for the sound system. And I hope you all have a great convention, and thanks again for your attendance today.